Minister Makamba, thank you for joining us today on China-Africa Talk.
A pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Minister, you held talks with the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi on May 17. What have been the outcomes of your visit so far? Can you share more about your agenda and expectations for the visit?
Yes, we had a very good meeting with Foreign Minister Wang Yi. We touched on three areas. The first one was bilateral relations. As you know, this year is the 60th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relations between Tanzania and People's Republic of China. So we assessed the past 6 years, and we were very happy with the state of bilateral relations. Over the past 6 years, our relations have improved. The engagement between people have increased, and we're very happy that there's a record of an improved relations. We also talked about key projects that our two countries are keen on doing, from infrastructure, education, energy, across sectors, and the processes to get there. As you know, Tanzania has been a beneficiary of Chinese development programs for Africa. So we took time during the meeting to look at particular projects that we have done, the ones that we plan to do with as well, and the processes to get them done. And also we talked about the FOCAC, the upcoming FOCAC summit in September, and the preparations for it. And the minister was generous in offering the view of the People's Republic of China and the expectations for the summit. And also we offered our views and ideas on the forum, and then we touched a bit on global affairs and regional issues.
2024 marks the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Tanzania. How do you see the current China-Tanzania bilateral relations?
Well, if there's one word to describe the relations, I would say excellent. We have had 6 years, as I mentioned earlier, of solid relations. We see eye to eye in many international affairs. We have conducted our relations in a mutually beneficial matter, and we see that this relations is of value for both countries.
Tanzania is the first African country that Chinese President Xi Jinping visited after he assumed presidency in 2013. Now, during his visit, he put forward the principles of sincerity, real results, amity, and good faith for China's Africa policy, which has now become a basic policy concept guiding China's cooperation and developing countries. Now, how do you evaluate those principles, and do you think the cooperation between China and Tanzania are reflecting such principles?
No, these are very important principles. As you know, in Africa, we relate to people from the basis of our history. And the history of Africa has been glorious in one hand, but also has been one with exploitation and colonization. And therefore, the underpinnings of our relations with any partner results from that context, colonialism and exploitation. And therefore, when China comes to us with guiding principles such as this, they are the ones that work for us. We see that are in line with our ambitions and aspirations. And these principles have worked very well so far, because the design of programs or projects between China and Africa and China and Tanzania has been grounded in these principles, and therefore has been beneficial to us. And obviously, as you know, the continent has different partners whose guiding principles are different, but we value that the Chinese people and government have chosen the guiding principles that are in line and sensitive to our history and background.
Tanzania is a member of EAC, COMESA and SADC. In what areas do you think China and Tanzania can deepen their cooperation to make this relationship an epitome of China-Africa cooperation?
I think that China has done very well in moving people, hundreds of millions of people, from poverty. In Africa, still poverty is a challenge. There's a lot to emulate from what China has done to uplift people from poverty. We know that since opening up, industrialization and export-led economy has led to advances in this country. I think there is a lot to exchange and a lot to learn in terms of how that was made possible. Industrialization with manufacturing, and I think technology transfer in that arena is key. I think that Africa and China has been able to process its commodities and raw material within the country so that they export finished product, and Africa can learn in that sphere. So that's an area I think that we can learn from China and do exchange.
China has made significant achievements in green development, and African countries, including Tanzania, have considerable resources and demands in renewable energies. Now, can you share with us some of the new energy projects co-built by China and Tanzania, and what role they're playing in Tanzania's green transition?
There are a number of projects under development, but I can name one that is now under implementation, which is a 100 megawatt solar project in an area called Kishapu, which is built by the Chinese government and funded by African Development Bank and also the French Agency for Development. This is a key project because it will be the first ever solar power input into the grid. And I think it will help to have a grid also with a renewable power, and it will be historic occasion as well.
The Tazara Railway is a hallmark of the Tanzania-China relations. Could you please share with us the meaning and influence of the railway up till now, and what measures are going to be in place to resuscitate Tazara?
Tazara is of tremendous symbolic significance to us, and it's an emotional project for Tanzanians and Zambians, of course, the Chinese. Almost all Chinese of all generations are aware of Tazara because it was one of the very first projects from this country overseas to help a fellow developing country. It's a project that, in terms of symbolism, that was meant to assert our independence, Tanzania and Zambia, to enable us to export our material. This one was immediately post-independence, so it was designed to help the two countries to develop their economies. So since then, it has contributed immensely towards building that corridor for exports and import of product from overseas. And China's contribution in that respect has been phenomenal.
The 2024 China-Tanzania Culture and Tourism Year has just kicked off in Beijing. We know Tanzania boasts a vast array of natural and cultural heritage. Can you highlight some of the resources to attract Chinese tourists? What can be done to further promote cultural people-to-people exchanges between China and Tanzania?
You know that Tanzania has a vast array of attractions. The famous one is Mount Kilimanjaro. We have Zanzibar with the Spice Islands with beautiful beaches and a lot of tourist assets there to visit. Also, biodiversity of Tanzania offers many options for visitors to come and visit Tanzania. Tanzania is always ranked atop in terms of countries to visit. So the Chinese tourists can always find pleasant to visit Tanzania with a lot to see in different options. What needs to happen is to ease the movement of people from China to Africa, to make it easier to travel, to make it easier to get a visa and get into the country, to make it even cheaper as well. But also the infrastructure, the flights and airport and airstrips. China boosts massive amount of people. According to statistics, about 4 years ago, before COVID, about 180 million Chinese traveled overseas. 180 million Chinese traveled overseas. How many came to Africa? Only 1 million. And those 1 million went to only 50% of those went to only 4 countries. You can see the potential. If only 10% of Chinese who travel overseas come to Africa, that would boost our economies in a significant way. I think us in Africa have a lot to do to make the Chinese aware of the attractions that exist in Africa and how to get there. And also I think the Chinese side also has a lot to do in terms of making it easy for the Chinese people to travel to Africa as well. So it takes two to tango, and the responsibility lies on 2 sides. But we're very, very confident that a lot is happening. For instance, this past week, there has been a roadshow by Tanzanian officials to try to get the Chinese people to understand the tourist attractions and tourism assets that are in Tanzania. And we're very happy to know that this roadshow has been received very well. There's a tremendous excitement now of the Chinese who wants to visit Tanzania.
The 9th Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC, will be held later this year in Beijing. What proposals will Tanzania bring to the table of this year's forum, and what could be the next step in strengthening the future of China-Africa and China-Tanzania relations through the FOCAC?
As you are, first of all, we're very happy with the FOCAC process. Since its inception, has been a very useful forum to coordinate relations between Africa and China. As you know, as I mentioned earlier, Africa has many, many partners, but China is the one that is most organized in the way it relates to Africa. China is a partner whose priorities in its interaction and engagement with Africa aligns with our aspirations as a continent. So the forum has been very useful. And the processes within the forum in terms of the experts meeting, ministerial and summit also has been useful, and we see results. Now, one of the features of FOCAC is consultation. No country, we're 54 countries, so if each country brings its own things at FOCAC, it will be chaotic. One of the best parts of FOCAC is that even we in Africa organize ourselves as a continent together to come up with priorities in which we want to engage China with. So we will work with our colleagues in the continent to come up with key areas and focus areas to bring to the table for FOCAC. But what we see now as proposals for focus areas are the ones that we are okay with. We know that the key theme is modernization here, to build the high-level China-Africa community. I think that's important for us. The areas of governance, areas of agricultural modernization and manufacturing, peace and security, all of those are key and priority areas for Africa. So we're very confident that the summit will be successful. Now, the key thing about FOCAC also is results, which comes out of experience sharing. We are very happy that the Chinese government in this upcoming FOCAC have organized itself with us to put a key feature of experience sharing and practical experience sharing as a key component of this focus. I think this is important because we don't expect that for it to be just a meeting. I think the exchange of ideas, experience sharing, tours, we hear that ministers and experts will get to see different places in China and how development and modernization took place so that they can take the lessons home. So we have high hopes for the upcoming FOCAC. We're very happy in the initial interaction with the Chinese government how they plan to organize it. And we as a continent will also come with ideas as well.
At the 13th meeting of the China-Africa Think Tanks Forum, the Africa-China Dar es Salaam Consensus was issued. What's the significance of this consensus, and what role will this consensus play to build a high-level China-Africa community with a shared future? What can Tanzania and China do to contribute to achieving this goal?
Well, it's a significant step for our experts to come up with a new blueprint for global order. I think there ought to be alternatives and rethinking of the way international relations is ordered now. So the Dar es Salaam Consensus offers that, an alternative path towards modernization, towards development, towards international engagement. The international order that is based on openness, transparency, mutual respect, equity, fairness. These are the things that we've always wanted. The quest for new economic international order is 50 years old. And the current order has not worked for us as Africans. When you have conversations in which you come up with ideas to reorder the current global order that is unfair, that is unjust, it's a good thing. And we hope that all Africans, together with China and other international partners, will coalesce around the Dar es Salaam Consensus as a new way to organize a global community. We think that part of the underpinnings of the Dar es Salaam Consensus is our ability as Africans to, let's say, one example is to conduct value addition and to do manufacturing within the continent, and therefore to undertake an export-led economy with capacity within our countries, with technology transfer to Africa, with, let's say, China, because you go to African market, you pick up a product, it's made in China. Nothing wrong with it. But it's possible actually to be made by China, but in Africa. And this is where we see the future is, because one of the key demands for our continent is jobs. The demographic structure in Africa is such that you have a lot of young people that are looking for work. And we see foreign direct investment into Africa, manufacturing, agricultural modernization as solving a critical problem of Africa, which is jobs. So we see the Dar es Salaam Consensus is in an alignment with the demands of our continent.
Now, Minister Makamba, how many times have you been to China, and how do you evaluate China's development? Can you share with us some of your experiences and stories here in China?
No, I've been to China now maybe 4 times, 3 times in official capacity and 1 time in personal capacity. This country has always fascinated me in terms of its speed of growth, in terms of its ambition, in terms of determination for development, in terms of warmth and hospitality of the Chinese people. In the time that I came here in my personal capacity, I traveled by car, by train in Chinese villages. I met people who welcomed me to their homes, and people who have seen older Chinese people who have witnessed the transformation within their generation, from being extremely poor, no tap water, no electricity, no schools, no roads, to now living in a modern, prosperous society. And then you can see the level of inspiration in living in such world where you move from poverty to prosperity within a generation. And I think there's a lot to learn from this country for countries such as us in Africa, that it is possible actually to move from poverty to prosperity within a generation. You just need determination, discipline, leadership, right policies, and execution. And of course, the correct partnership with a family of nations.
This is CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.